Tidgewell, and this is the Shot Clock Sports Report podcast. I'm joined by my co-host,
Jack Seagroat.
Jack Seagroat. Thank you for joining us today. In today's episode, we'll be going over the NBA Finals, what we've seen so far in Games 1 and 2, and what we expect to see by the time you're watching this tonight in Game 3. We'll talk about Dan Hurley recently turning down the Los Angeles Lakers, turning back to UConn. Power 5 schools deciding to pay players, and the Madden cover athlete, which was just announced on June 11th, Tuesday, June 11th, the time we were recording this video. And then we'll finish up with some breaking news that hit the world today. Joey Chestnut banned from the hot dog eating contest. So let's get right into things, starting with biggest sporting event going on right now, NBA Finals. Celtics up 2-0. What have you taken away from the series so far, Jack?
It's honestly been very surprising to me. I didn't think it'd be a dominant victory, but I had Mavericks in 6. And it's been very surprising that not only did they not win game 1, but game 2 they lost 2. I was iffy on game 1, but I was pretty confident the Mavs would pull away with a win in game 2. But even with Tatum not playing well at all, playing disgusting, the Celtics are just the better team, which I figured they were. But I thought the Mavs would pull this series out in 6 because their execution is just that much better. But Kyrie has been underwhelming. Luka's had some bad turnovers, and the role players have disappeared.
Yeah, I totally think that when you looked at the Celtics, there are sort of two ways of looking at it. One way was saying they came from a very easy Eastern Conference, so their players were very rested. But at the same time, they sort of lacked the competition that the Mavs faced. But at the same time, the Mavs went through that gauntlet of Clippers, Thunder, and Timberwolves, which are all better opponents than what the Celtics faced along their way. So what you said earlier about Kyrie and Jason Tatum, who do you think has been more disappointing so far in this series, and who's more likely to bounce back in games 3 and 4?
That second part's a good question. I think it's obvious that Jason Tatum's been more disappointing. I mean, I'm not a big Jason Tatum believer. He unfortunately is a top 7 player in the NBA, and I mean, there's just no one to say to put up there with him, to say that he's not, because I think after the top 4 of Jokic, Luka, Shea, and Giannis, there's a big drop off. But I mean, he just played horrible. There's no way around it. Game 1 wasn't horrible overall, but it was bad. And then I mean, game 2, I mean, that was horrific. Not only did he look horrible, he looked like there was just no energy. Like it looked like he couldn't. Not only could he not buy a bucket, but on that second and 1, I believe in the third quarter, he looked up at the sky and was thanking God almost that he made one shot and it was a layup.
Yeah.
And I've always been very critical of the fact that he doesn't drive enough, and then I watch him drive and he can't make a layup. So I mean, I don't know. He obviously is a great defender still. He's passing the ball better. Turnovers are less of an issue now, which I think is big because that was obviously the reason they lost, along with the poor shooting, 2 years ago in the finals. But I mean, it doesn't change it doesn't cover the fact that he is just playing horrible. I mean, 6 for 22. What was he from 3? Let's check that out. I do
think 1 for 8 in
one
game
for
2.
7. One for
For
7 in
7?
game 2. 14%.
Yeah.
27% from the field. Not. I mean, he did have 12 assists, 9 rebounds, but I mean, it's just not going to
Now,
get it
lucky
done.
for him, the Celtics are doing great without him, so obviously he's not having as much pressure. But I mean, honestly, I agree with you. I think Tatum's definitely been more disappointing. Obviously, I mean, Kyrie trying to do what he did with LeBron, be the second best player in the league, if that isn't too confusing, and help lead his team to a championship. But I think, honestly, you look at the Celtics roster right now, I'd rather have Jaylen Brown for this series. I'd rather have Jaylen Brown. I'd rather have Derek White. I'd rather have Drew Holiday, and arguably rather have Kristaps Porzingis. So, I mean, you're looking at
Over
Tatum.
Kyrie Irving?
No, over Jason Tatum.
Oh.
So I feel like Tatum's the 5th best guy coming off for the Celtics, and he's going to have to do better to close out the series because I do expect, to answer the second part of my question, I do expect Kyrie to bounce back, especially coming back to Dallas. I'm sure playing in Boston for him was not the ideal situation. So I think coming back to Dallas, we know he has the experience of being down in series and clawing and fighting his way back. Not only have the Mavs, they had to do that in the first round, but he's done it throughout his entire career. So I expect a bounce back game or two from Kyrie and hopefully make the series more interesting.
Yeah, I, I unfortunately think that he is the best player in the Celtics. Jason Tatum is. Um, he's shown that. I mean, the 50-point game six, I believe. Yeah, game six in Milwaukee last year, or was that 2 years ago? 2 years ago was just outright impressive. I believe he had a 51-point set game seven last year in the Sixers game, and I mean, I don't understand how he could be on the best team in the NBA and be inefficient. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I know it's because he takes so many jump shots, but like just you I don't like there's so many players who don't have near the teammates that he does, and yet they're able to be way more efficient, and he should be shooting 55% from the field with a player with those teammates and that scale. He needs to fix something because I don't know, and this game is showing it because when that three does not fall, it looks like, I mean, he looks lost out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then especially in that game too, you look at like the final 4 minutes where the Mavs were sort of staging that comeback before
Yep.
the huge block from like Derek White and Jaylen Brown there in the final minute. Jason Tatum was almost losing the Celtics that game with the poor shot decisions and had a couple chances, had a dagger three wide open, missed it. And I think those are sort of the opportunities, even when he's having a bad game, that he needs to capitalize on. But moving back over to the Mavs, 2-0 deficit. Do you think this is too much to overcome when facing who the best team in the league on paper with the Boston Celtics, or do you think Luka and the Mavs could get it done?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. Um, I think I think they can. I don't know if they will. I mean, I thought the Celtics were the better team from the beginning. I mean, that starting five is just insane. They got five players who are all arguably top 30 in the league. I think Porzingis is
Yeah.
extremely underrated. Uh, I don't. Missoula said today that or Porzingis had the injury, so that's something. It was some crazy injury that we have no idea what they're talking about,
Yeah,
but
but
it clearly
Luka
looks.
also a little unhealthy. It might seem he's going to play obviously in Game 3, but having to take some
Yeah, he's
numbing.
got a bunch of nagging injuries, but I mean,
Yeah,
he's a first team All NBA player 5 years in a row, or whatever. I can't hear about his injuries. He's got to play better. But back to Porzingis, I think they're saying it's a super serious injury and that he's questionable for Game 3. I don't know how that's possible. I think he might be out for the series. He's a big guy. We all know how big guys have trouble running up the floor on their own, even when they're healthy, let alone when they're injured. I mean, you saw the second Porzingis got injured, he was just like a cone out there.
yeah,
It looked they were just attacking for 2 minutes because he could barely even move, which
yeah,
is what they should have been doing. Um, I think that could be big. He's a great. I mean, they have two somehow great rim protectors in their guards, which I think is insane. Tatum and Brown can protect the rim somehow too, and then but Porzingis is their best rim protector, best rebounder maybe. I mean, him Tatum's a good rebounder, but he stretches the floor. So does Al Horford, but Al Horford just offensively outside of stretching the floor really doesn't give you anything, and then defensively, I mean, he's not horrible, but I mean, I question how well he's going to be able to stop the lobs from Lively and Gafford.
yeah.
I think
Especially
that
yeah
could be
on
big.
the defensive end, because that's what the Celtics have been so great at in this series, controlling obviously Luka and Kyrie, and really the defense has been what's been showing strong here in the series. So far for the Celtics, who is your series MVP through the first two games?
Why not just overall because it's 2-0?
Yeah,
Drew Holiday. I mean, come on. He's been the best player in the series. Now him, Brown, and White, and honestly Tatum have all played a factor in these wins. Tatum, back to him for a second, has had a pretty good plus minus for someone who's been playing that bad, which just shows. I mean, it could be luck, but he's a great defender. He just is, and uh, I know that him and Brown get criticized a lot because they have some stinkers, but he's durable, and that is why he's a top 7 player, and he's obviously a great defender. But back to Holiday and why he is the Finals MVP. I mean, just everything. I mean, let's go back. Let's see his stats game two. I mean, I remember it being crazy. 11 for 14, which is 79% from the field. 2 for 4, 50% from three, 100% from the line. 11 rebounds. Yep, 11 rebounds. 4 offensive, which
Yeah.
is great for a guard. Only 3 assists, but a steal, a block, no turnovers. So he played 26 minutes, scored 26 points with 11 rebounds, no turnovers,
Yeah, and
and was
I love
tied.
this take. I was gonna say Drew Holiday is my pick too. Just he's been great on both sides of the court,
And he's
defensively,
guarding
offensively.
Luca and Tatum part of the time too. I mean, or not Luca and Kyrie. I mean,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's not like he's just taking defense off either, which is obviously a great defender.
hmm
So
Yeah, and
he is
obviously,
my Finals MVP so far. Oh well,
yeah,
I guess we got to talk about Game One too, because that obviously factors in.
yeah,
For Game One, he obviously was not as good as he was in Game Two, because that's not even possible. Because he obviously was he's basically perfect in game two. Game one, 4 for 9, 40% from three, but best plus minus the team at plus 20. Tatum was
yeah. I
so
think you look at a team player, almost giving off those Iguodala vibes of
yeah,
that
8 rebounds.
Warriors
So
team.
he's averaging 9.5 rebounds, and then he also had 5 assists that game, and again, no turnovers, which I think is such an important aspect of basketball because it's literally like it's worse than a missed shot, and
Yeah, it could be a
to lose a
4 point
turnover, I mean that's
play.
huge. Tatum had
Yeah,
6 in the first game. I mean he got that down, but and then he shot way worse. So Brown has played pretty good. I just don't think scoring wise, yes, he's been playing better than Holiday, but barely because I mean that amazing second game, and then the combination with playmaking, taking care of the ball, and then I think that Holiday can make a great case to be the best defender in this amazing defensive team from the Celtics.
yeah. Holiday's also just done a great job. I think he's honestly been the leader of the team this series. And when they needed
Absolutely.
him to have a big game, he showed it in game two. Playing great on both sides of the court right now, and it's great to see. Obviously, he already does have the one with the Bucks, but he you can really see he wants to win this one. I mean, obviously all the players out there do, but he's been playing honestly the best we've seen him play all year long, and it's great to see him get some recognition for it. So next up, oh wait, before this will be the last part of this section. Predictions rest of the way, going not only in Game Three, but how the rest of the series will shake out.
Well, if we look at the odds on FanDuel, Mavericks are plus 540. I thought
Not
the
great.
Mavericks were a good bet all series, but obviously I've been wrong. So
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know. I
USA
think
Cricket versus USA Cricket odds right there. Not exactly in your favor, but you never know.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I could see a comeback. I think Luca is, especially with how Tatum's playing. I think he is easily the best player in the series. Tatum and is just not even close to the level Luca is, and we've seen that. If we've seen why, because he's just so inconsistent, and he shouldn't be this inconsistent for someone who I believe is 27 and like his 8th year in the league with this much playoff experience. I mean, my
Yeah,
God, he's played so much playoff games, and yet this is still happening. I don't know how. Well, I know how. He's just not as good as people think. But I think Celtics 6. I think Celtics in 6 is the bet right now. I think if you go to series correct score, Celtics win 4-2 is plus 500. Celtics win in 5 is plus 185. I just don't see the Mavs only winning one game. I think Luca can pull together 2 amazing games and take the series to 6, where Boston will eventually win.
yeah,
And let me check out the Finals MVP odds. I don't know if that's even here, but
yeah.
I
I don't
think I don't know
see.
what. Oh, here we go. Series player props. Um, oh, I don't even know if props. Here we go. I don't know what the odds are, but I think Holiday would be a good bet. I think
hmm
I just don't trust Tatum to. I think Brown was a good bet from the beginning. I don't know now. I mean, he's played well, and his odds should be better just because Tatum's played
Yeah,
horrible. But I bet Kyrie after game one. After game one, I bet Kyrie plus like 3,600 to win NBA Finals. I bet like $2 on it though. So
yeah,
yeah, it was like $52 payout. But I mean, or no, it was $72 payout actually. But obviously that's not gonna cash.
Yeah,
But that's I think Celtics in 6 is where we're headed.
I would probably say I agree. If not, Celtics in 5. Do I think the Mavs will get a game at home? Yes, I think Luka and Kyrie will be able to pull it together for a game, possibly two, as you were saying. But when it goes back into Boston, that's where I really do worry about the Mavs. I think it's crucial if the Mavs do want any chance in the series, you got to win both at home. But I just don't see it happening. So I like Celtics in 6. If not Celtics in 5, I think they'll close out this one. Except we don't know what's going on with Porzingis, and the team could lack slightly without him. So I guess I'll say Celtics in 6 as well, just being safe. But I think it'll be hard for the Mavs to complete this deficit. Moving on, we'll go into
Wait,
some
one
more.
more. Let me ask you something. You like do you like Celtics in 4 or Celtics in 7 more, or as more likely?
Now that's I would have to say I just could never imagine Celtics in 4 because I think you're going to see a game. Luka's not going to let him. He's not going to get swept. He's going to put up one, and Kyrie. I think they'll fight to win at least one at home. I don't think they're going to let the Celtics come in and beat them twice on their home court to win it. I think it'll definitely
Yeah,
be going
yeah,
back to Boston. So
yeah.
moving on to more.
I don't believe in Kyrie as someone who can take over a game anymore at this age, and the fact that he's just never been the best player on a really good team. But Luka, come on, I mean, he's got to have one. He's
Yeah.
averaging 6 turnovers these first 2 games. That's unacceptable. I think he's going to change something there. He's always averaged a lot of turnovers, but
Hmm.
for the assists he's getting, he needs to be getting less turnovers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So moving on to the other big NBA news, Dan Hurley turns down the offer for the LA Lakers. What was it? I think 6 years, 70 million was what the
Yep.
Lakers were giving him, which is nearly. I think he's on a 6 year, $30 million deal at UConn. Obviously, I think we'll see that offer. We'll see his contract at UConn grow since he's led him to back-to-back titles. But what do you think of it, and what do you think is next for the Lakers?
Well, I saw this. I forget where I saw this. It might have been First Things First. It's a Fox Sports show. When we go to the top paid coach. Oh yeah, right here. It's on Front Office Sports. Highest paid coaches in the league. That 6 year 70 million would put him fifth, right ahead of Mike Budenholzer. And that might seem crazy, but I mean, we're talking about the Los Angeles Lakers here. Why is he not getting offered 15 million a year? I think at some point we're talking about living in LA and getting paid 15 million a year over getting paid 5 in Connecticut. He's gonna take the money at some point. I don't know why. I like JJ Redick as their next coach. I think that's what's gonna happen. But if they really wanted him, they should have offered him more money. I think because
Yeah.
Monty Williams is making 13 million and he's horrible. Maybe not horrible, but he's not good. So he should be making more than 6 year 70 for someone who won back-to-back championships too.
Yeah, I actually have a slightly different take on that. I do think obviously the money was a big grab for and I do think it was obviously a noticeable change in the amount he would be making. I just think I have my own theory that he was going to decline it the entire time, and he just sort of wanted to uh, not only draw more attention, but also maybe show how much he really does love the UConn program by turning it down.
Absolutely, and he's going to get a huge pay raise. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, well, even let's say he did think about it or not. Either way, it'd be stupid for him to not like let this get out in
yeah, and
public.
I mean, obviously, if
He
the
needs to
Lakers
show that he should be making more money.
offered him to be the highest paid coach in the NBA, I think he's going to take it. But I honestly think the money isn't. You look at a guy like Dan Hurley, uh, you could sort of just tell it's not about the money to him. He wants to continue this winning culture at UConn, and he's sort of become the face of. He's kind of filled that Coach K role of this as the face of college basketball. So, great for him staying at UConn. I do think UConn is the team to beat. A lot of people are talking about this Duke recruiting class coming in, obviously led by Cooper Flag, but UConn's coming off back to back, and they looked unstoppable all of last season, and they've really been rolling since the March of their first title. In that they entered that tournament, I want to say as a 5 seed, but I mean every game they're just blowing guys out. Everyone saw it March Madness this year. They were just blowing teams out. They had that 30-0 run against Illinois. I think really shows how good of a basketball team and how dominant they really are under Hurley. So I'm still expecting great things out of UConn.
Um, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think there's a chance they win. I don't. I mean, were the three best players last year not Klingon, Newton, and Castle? And are they not all going to the NBA this year? I don't understand
Yeah,
how you
but
could
who were
possibly.
their three best players 2 years ago? I don't think Klingon wasn't a big factor in that championship series team. That championship team.
But but Newton was. Newton was their second best player behind Sonogo.
True, but I do
So I
think
mean,
with
I think they're going to be good, Harry. But I just don't. Um, I don't see them winning. I just don't think they have enough talent. And I also don't think Duke will win because Duke always chokes, and I don't think that will change.
so who's your
I
pick
don't
for
know.
the season?
I don't really I don't follow college basketball that well, but I'm just doing some research. I've been just doing research today, based off the topics you've given me, and I knew right when I found out that all these players were clearing for the draft, all the top when I've looked at mock drafts, what I actually do pay attention to, a lot of them are UConn players. I'm like, there's no this team's getting gutted, and they are, based on the research I've
Mhm.
done today. I mean, sure, it's possible. They're obviously reloading through the transfer portal as they should, and that's the best way they can do that and have a good, strong recruiting class. So they have a pretty good one. But I just don't think they have the talent. But they do have the best coach, so you never know.
Yeah, I think that is a big factor. I think he will be able to definitely rebuild the program to a certain degree. How dominant they will be,
Yeah, I
obviously.
think they could be really good again. I just don't know if it's this year we're talking.
Yeah, I will see how it shakes out in about half a year time when the season kicks back underway in at UConn. So now that we're sort of transitioning over to college, about a week ago we had the Power Five agreeing that they will be allowing colleges to pay players for their work done on the field. What do we think of this, and how will it change the college landscape?
This is huge. Well, they were already kind. I mean, I don't know a lot about how colleges were able to offer NIL, but I mean, college, whether it was legal or not before, has always been driven by money. I mean, all the best teams have the best booster clubs or alumni, really, that just pay for everything. And I mean, hundreds of $1 million from these alumni that are just going straight to the football program to pay for everything, depending on just the training facilities, stadiums, paying the players illegally. And then NIL, I mean, they were just basically doing the same thing. And now, I mean, paying directly, I mean, it just makes it more like obvious just where players have their best spot of going to make the most money. But I mean, it's just a huge change from before. I mean, think about, I mean, Reggie Bush lost his Heisman because of this, and it
Yeah,
was not even cash; it was a house. So it's obviously like cash he'd go spend that on cocaine or something. But it was a house for his family to live in, and he
yeah,
lost his Heisman for that, and now we're paying. So I think we'll see him get his trophy back soon, as he should. Or no, isn't he getting it back?
he is. He
I think
is.
he
Yeah,
is,
I think he already might have.
as he should. And I don't know if this is a good change or not. We'll see. But I mean, we knew this was gonna happen. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the change, like you said. I think NIL was basically painting the picture on the wall that this was bound to happen.
yeah,
But I think it's terrible for the sport just because you already had the transfer portal, which I think is sort of creating a repetitiveness in college football. But now the top schools, Alabama is going to be willing to pay anyone, anything. Same with Ohio State. I would say Michigan too. And how is a school like is Rutgers going to pay their players as much as Alabama is willing to? So that will just lead all the top players to go there. And honestly, what I was thinking is we might see a super division form out of this where I just use Rutgers, but maybe another Big Ten team like Minnesota. Minnesota might say we're not going to pay our guys, and maybe the top third or top two-thirds even of every conference will say we're going to pay, and they'll break off and they'll form their own super conference, and the other teams will sort of drop out and having a lines of not paying their players. Just because I don't know if every team really has the payroll to do that or thinks it's worth doing with. I mean, are you going to pay your players to go 3-6 and not make a bowl game? I mean, 3-6 in conference play and not make a bowl game. Doesn't really seem worth it to me. especially when those players could leave through the portal and just go chase. You have a good guy, go chase a bigger bag at Bama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State.
Well, I mean, you're a Notre Dame fan, I don't follow college football as closely as you do, but I mean, Notre Dame's going to be able to pay anyone. They have unlimited money, so I mean, you guys should look better, I guess. But I get what you're saying, and that they'll like come to almost an alliance of not paying these guys, but they just really can't. I mean, maybe if they pay them or pay them not, they're either not going to make the bowl game anyways, or like the playoffs. But you're just not going to be able to compete without paying these guys. I mean,
Yeah.
why? Like, if I'm just like I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna compete in a sport in college, and I'm probably not going to get paid. But if I'm just thinking like, if these schools are pretty close, and one's willing to pay me what 15 grand a year, and the other one's not paying me at all, I mean that just makes the decision for me.
Yeah. Obviously, I think it'll also be a factor of how much money they're going to give. Is there going to be a salary cap? Is there going to be a limit for each sport that the NCAA football can decide and NCAA basketball can decide?
Yeah.
Or is it just going to be unlimited for everything? Because then, yeah, I mean, when does it become recruiting, and then when does it become it's just strictly booster clubs bringing in players by paying them mass amounts of money, which I think it could easily turn into. What you said about Notre Dame, I'm honestly not sure because I do think Notre Dame will try and hold out on paying their athletes as long as possible, just because they
I don't think so.
obviously have that very high academic standard that you've seen they've put on recruiting. I think that's honestly held following Notre Dame. I feel like it slightly held them back that they look for the high academics. So I don't know if they'll be jumping at it right away. I think eventually they'll have to give in because I mean it's Notre Dame football, one of the blue bloods I'd say of college football. So I think eventually they'll have to give in to compete, but I will see. I don't think all Power Five schools are soon to be Power Four are going to be willing to really jump into paying all these players because it's expensive. And I don't think a lot of people don't understand that a lot of money that these um, universities make off of sporting events, they're already pumping back into renovations and new facilities and hiring their coaches, especially with the coaching carousel that we're seeing now, where you're having to offer your coach $8 million or they're going to leave, and now you're stuck with no coach.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to change. I think the change is going to be very slow. Because I think money's already been a big factor with the NIL and everything. But I think I don't know. I kind of agree with you. This is not a good move though. I think maybe 20 years from now we're going to be like, this is the wrong move here. I mean, we're
I also
paying.
wonder if we'll see an effect on maybe players staying in college longer now that they can be paid not only through obviously NIL but through the call universities directly. Is there a sort of incentive to stay and play your 4 years instead of leaving early? Maybe colleges offer that as a way to get players to stay, and they could be making just as much, if not more, as they would on their rookie salary in the NFL or NBA.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't know. I mean, I don't think the salaries are gonna be able. They're not gonna be able to match them.
Yeah,
Like the top guys. I mean, they're gonna want to get to the NBA because I mean they're gonna make it. There's just no way. Like the first rookie contracts, like for first round picks. I mean, the lottery picks. What do they start at? Like 7 or 8 million, and the first pick's like 14. I mean,
yeah.
there's no way
What's a guy
college can
like
match that.
Cooper Flag or Arch Manning gonna make? Two big names in the basketball and football worlds for
Yeah,
college. So
yeah,
we'll see what they
they're
set the number at. I hope, since they've already passed it, that there is some form of salary cap to create some sort of competitive balance. But it'll be exciting to see how this shakes out in a couple of years, even if I do think it's ultimately the wrong move for college athletics. But we'll see how everything shakes out.
yeah. I think that's all we have to talk about for college.
Yeah, so moving on, I just wanted to.
Um, how about at the end we can talk about NBA trades this offseason too.
Yeah, sure, we'll see if can fit that in at the end. So, Madden cover athletes just
Yep.
announced June 11th, which is the day we're recording this video, Christian McCaffrey is your cover athlete. He is the first non-quarterback since 2019, which was, you have a guess?
AB.
Antonio Brown. So, quite impressive. Obviously, had that monster season. I honestly think Christian McCaffrey should have been the MVP. Any quick take on it? What you thought of the cover?
Um, I thought there was many cans for MVP. I didn't think Brock Purdy was. He should not have been. I don't
Yeah,
think he should have been. But we especially saw that in that Ravens game, which is horrible. I think yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I guess should have been Lamar or Christian McCaffrey. I just don't think it should have been Allen. I'm just happy it was not Josh Allen. He led the league in picks or turnovers or whatever he did, and his team wasn't even that good. And
yeah.
they're
I,
going to
I
be worse
think
this year.
honestly, you had Justin Jefferson. I think a lot of people have been eyeing over the past couple of years, and especially after he signed that massive contract, you thought maybe he would be the cover guy, but
Yeah.
I think it's definitely in a couple of years it'll be his time. Especially they've already used Mahomes twice now. Can't go back to him. I doubt they'll
Well, they'll
use.
go back to him after he three-peats this year.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think they'll use Lamar again unless he wins another MVP. They won't use Josh Allen. I guess Joe Burrow maybe in line. Maybe C.J. Stroud we could see on the cover. Um, Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Aaron Rodgers if the Jets miraculously won it all this year. I doubt that will happen, knowing what the Jets do year in and year out. But you never know. We're still a long way from the season. So, and obviously the Jets had that incredible defense. And that
Yeah,
was
I think it should have been CMC though. Yeah, Justin Jefferson obviously is a great player, but he was injured for a lot of last season, and CMC was by far the best running back in the NFL. His
if not
team
the
was
best
very
player.
good. I don't think. I mean, Mahomes is the best player. Well, I mean, last season he technically wasn't, but he is the best player, and he showed that in the Super Bowl. But he can't be it again. So for now, unless he repeats, so it should have been McCaffrey, and it was. So that's good.
Yeah,
It's a
and
start.
so that was. Oh wait, we still have the Joey Chestnut. So news that just broke today, June 11th. I believe it was Impossible Meats that signed Joey Chestnut to a brand deal. I can fact it. Brand.
But news came out later that that this is not true and that he is trying to work out I don't even know if he signed with either of them, and he's trying to work out some sort of agreement that makes it so he can still compete or something. Let me do some research for a second. But it was more recently, like obviously this morning is the Joey where the original news came out, but I saw around 5 o'clock that that may not be completely true based off what
Yeah,
he said.
so maybe some more news still to come on that. As we keep doing the episodes approaching July 4th, obviously we'll definitely touch back on that. But I mean, if it is true, competitive eating world, I don't really follow it that closely except for July 4th. But this is I think a huge hit. I'm surprised they would ban him just because I don't know why else. There's a lot of people tuning into the hot dog eating contest other to see how much Joey Chestnut can eat, just because he'll beat the guys by 20 every year, and I think it's more of a race against himself. So I think banning him is a terrible move, despite the brand deal. Just let him do both if he wants to do both, because in the end, everyone's making more money. But it's an interesting choice. We'll see. I'm surprised Chestnut would do it. I guess I can't really speak on that, impossible
He
me.
probably got offered a lot of money.
I got offered a lot of money, and maybe he thinks it's
Yeah.
the right decision for the environment. So I can't really touch on that, but um, I think it's a terrible idea to ban him. I think it's too
Well,
harsh.
it looks like they didn't like see that he had made some sort of deal with another company, and then they just said, "Oh, you're banned now." It has something to do with the rules of.
Yeah.
But it says to set the record straight, I do not have a contract with Emily or Nathan's, and they're looking to change the rules from past years as it relates to other partners I can work with.
All right. Yeah. So we'll
So
get more
he
news
does
on
plan
that.
on signing with Emily. Then that makes
All right.
sense.
Hopefully, in the next coming days, we'll understand that and get to see Joey Chestnut. at Coney Island on July 4th as we all tune in. That was our last topic, unless you want to touch on anything else, Jack, before we sign off for the episode.
How about NBA trades this
NBA
offseason?
trades, what you're expecting this offseason, just sort of stuff like that.
Yeah, and let's just float some ideas out there. Right now I'm in the CBS Sports. They about a week ago they posted this 75 players
All
NBA
right,
trade
give me
candidates,
your
75
two
players
favorite players on the trading block this NBA offseason.
that like what that I'd like to see moved or
That you'd like to see moved, and maybe what would be offered for them and where you could see them going.
well one would be Giannis. I would love to see him be traded, especially to my Thunder, but that's unlikely. But just him traded in general, but it would be interesting. I think he should request a trade. But maybe if I go more realistic, it does seem like Butler's out there. Trey Young's gonna get traded. I think. I mean, Young or Murray will get traded. I think either one. I think they're going to keep Murray and trade Young though.
Now, I have
Uh
two interesting things. Let's
oh, and
go.
then Garland too.
Here's two really good teams, I think, to talk about. Both teams made the playoffs this year. We'll start with the team eliminated first out of the two. Cleveland Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell. Do they try and win now?
Well,
Maybe bring in, I
apparently
saw
they can't coexist with each other.
him and Darius Garland.
Who'd you say again?
Donovan Mitchell of the Cavs.
Trade Donovan Mitchell for who? Yeah, for who?
No, I was saying, do they try and hold on to Donovan
Trade him for
Mitchell,
who?
or maybe bring in someone
Oh,
else and try and go win now mode and show Donovan Mitchell that they want to be title contenders, or do they sort of just try and restock the roster, try and build around Darius Garland instead?
well, yeah. The rumors are that Darius Garland's agent told the Cavs that either you're trading me or you're trading Donovan Mitchell.
So you
So
don't
it
think they
looks like
match
that
very well?
duo is.
Oh, that's I had
I guess he
not
doesn't
heard
think they.
that.
I think, especially with how Garland played to end the season, I think. I don't think. I think his agent believes that Darius Garland is not reaching his full potential with Mitchell by his side, which I agree. Two
So
guards that are small and cannot play defense never mesh well.
who do you think they could
So
flip a guy
Garland to
if
the Magic.
go? You think they're going to trade
Yeah,
Garland? Do you think they'll hold on to Mitchell? And who
yeah.
would they
How
trade
about
Garland for?
Garland?
Just
How about
picks?
Garland for Suggs, Isaac, and picks or something, or Suggs and picks or something?
I could see that. I also saw one proposal today about Jimmy Butler joining the Cavs. I don't think he'll leave the Heat though. Um,
I think it's. I think the Heat are willing to trade him though, and he's not going to be able to stop that.
yeah, so maybe you
I
could
think.
see a flip.
Yeah, you just did the Cav. I don't think the Cavs though. I don't see that happening. Um, I don't know. Maybe somewhere out west.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, maybe I just like. What are you thinking? Like, I think if there's a Cavs Heat trade, Mitchell is going to the Heat, and that's the trade.
yeah. Just I
But
could understand straight up happening. Or I mean, I don't really know, but if you're saying that Garland and Mitchell don't want to play together, I mean, one of those guys will need to be traded.
same with Young and Murray. Young might go. I think Young to the Heat. Young, Butler, and Adebayo. They could be the second best team in the East.
And
And I
second,
think
second best. I mean, the Knicks healthy, I would say are the second best team in the East, but
maybe. I mean, it just depends. I mean, if Jimmy Butler, my bad, is healthy, I think he's better than Jalen Brunson. It's just
now
whether he
the
can be healthy.
second team I wanted
And
to touch on just to wrap things up. I'm sure you'll have a bunch to say about this. My Minnesota Timberwolves saw in the Western Conference Finals. Karl Anthony Towns is not good enough. He really looked good in that Western Conference semis, Game 7, where he clutched up and helped propel him to the win over the Nuggets. But especially when you have a guy, 6th man of the year, Naz Reid, sitting on your bench, the Timberwolves almost seem to play better with him on the court. Uh, do the Timberwolves think about moving Cat this offseason or running it back, keeping Nas as the sixth man coming off the bench? What do you see Minnesota doing this offseason?
Well, before Towns had the meltdown in the Western Conference Finals, there was always talk of him getting traded because of as we're reading here, the Timberwolves are in a dire financial situation because you're obviously going to start the Edwards contract kicks in next year, the
Mm-hmm.
Gobert contract obviously, and then McDaniels and Reed are getting paid a good amount, and then you also have Cat on a max.
Yeah.
So that's not all going to work. Someone needs to get traded, and you don't. I mean, you obviously are not trading Ant. You cannot trade. Gobert is untradeable because he's making 50 million a year and he's not good on offense. Whether just even if he is amazing at defense, and then why would you trade McDaniels and Reed? You got to trade Cat, and then after that meltdown, I mean, he can't be taken seriously. I think Cat and maybe another role player for Mikal Bridges could be something you guys should look at.
I wouldn't be the biggest fan of just Mikal Bridges, but I've heard maybe talk of Cat going to the Knicks. I'm not exactly sure how that would work out.
Randall, yeah, you guys will get Randall, which will be just horrible because I mean, you're just trading Towns for another inefficient
Yeah,
guy
and
that
also
can't
very
shoot them.
expensive. So, I'm not sure. As a Timberwolves fan, I love Karl-Anthony Towns, and he's the reason I started rooting for the Timberwolves. But you do wonder. I mean, money is a factor, but I think there is the question of, I think in the Cavaliers sense, their team is not good enough to win a championship the way it is currently. They need to make changes. I do think this Timberwolves team could win a championship if given another year. If I'd say probably 2 or 3 years is when Gobert's contract ends. I think you probably have until the end of the Gobert contract with this current roster to be able to win it all before having to totally change things. Gobert is going to be old. Conley will be gone. And Cat will be getting older. And if you're not seeing playoff success out of him, then why is he still on the team?
Well, the dire financial situation they're talking about is that core six. You can't keep them together after next season. You're not going to be able to afford it. You'll be too far over the second apron because everyone's contracts will be just too high. So you could run it back next season, but then after that, you need to trade one of them. And if you trade them this offseason, you might get a lot more value than you'll get next season, which is why they're talking about, I think, maybe trade Towns for a cheaper option.
Do you think that this Timberwolves team is good enough to win it next year? Not obviously might not be the favorite because you still have the
Are they good
Mavs.
enough? Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were in the Western Conference Finals. Ant did not play well, as you know,
Yeah.
or up to his standards at all. And
Mm-hmm.
if he does, that's maybe a 7 game series. And then
Mm-hmm.
they match up all against the Celtics. So yeah, they are good enough. Will they win? Probably not, because there's a lot of good teams, and it's unlikely for any of them to win because there's just so many. I think the top four this year will be the top four next year, and I think all four have an amazing shot at winning.
Yeah.
And I think the four or the five best teams in the league are in the West, and that's just so hard
Yeah.
for all those
Plus,
teams
the
to
West
make
is
it.
a gauntlet. I do think the Timberwolves, well, a little bit of bias, but I do think they are good enough to win a championship when they are playing that high caliber of both offense and defense that they showed,
Yep.
especially against the Suns in the first round and the Nuggets in games 6 and 7. So I do think they are good enough next year. I do think if they are going to trade Cat, they need to still maintain a focus of spreading the floor because Rudy Gobert is the stiffest player in the league and can barely move. So you cannot have another paints that are like him added to the team. I do think Nasri does spread the floor really well. Um, Obviously not as good of a shooter as
Yeah, he
Cat, but he,
does.
he does have that shot to him, and he can get hot. When he's hot, and he can take over a game, as we saw multiple times this season and postseason. Um, so yeah, I mean that's all I had to go over today. I don't know if there's any other teams you wanted to go over real quick, or if that's how you want to wrap it up today. But
What do you think LeBron's gonna do?
oh, LeBron, I think he'll convince the Lakers to draft him, if I'm being honest. I don't think he wants to switch teams. I think it's too late in his career for that. And
You think he does want to play with his son though? Because apparently he does.
I think he does. I think at least
I,
for a
I I'm
season.
not saying he doesn't. I don't know. I I find it hard to believe that he doesn't.
Yeah, I
I
think.
do think that if he tells the Lakers he's fine not playing with him, he's going to try to leave after next season.
Yeah, because
So,
do think he'll want to play with him for at least one season. But
yeah.
I think at most we got 3 more years of LeBron. So I think he'll stay put in LA right now because I think the GM that we see him that likes to build a team around himself. I think it's a little too late to do that at his point in his career. Honestly, I don't think a lot of
Yeah.
GMs are going to be willing to give LeBron the wheels after what happened in LA. I mean, sure they won a championship, but it was the Mickey Mouse year, and every other year
Okay, that's
they've
not.
been extremely disappointing. But that's a debate, obviously, for another day. So that will do it for this episode of the Shot Clock Sports Report podcast. Jack, thanks for being with us, and
Yep.
thanks for watching. We appreciate it. That'll do it for this episode, and have a great rest of your day. See you guys.
Bye-bye.